Good evening and welcome to AATV, and thank you for joining us. My name is Suad Asfour. Our guest tonight is Dr. Sharat G. Lin. Dr. Lin, he is a political economist and Middle East expert who has been to Gaza and the West Bank on multiple occasions. He is a board member of the Human Agenda, the San Jose Peace and Justice Center, and the Initiative of Equality. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lin.
Well, thank you very much, Suad, for having me again. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure
We
to be back.
always look forward to have you with us.
Thank you.
Well, at least you're local, right? We can have you anytime.
Right.
Dr. Lin, there has been so much going on. Basically, if we start talking about the war in Middle East, especially Gaza and Palestine, since 1948, it has been continuous fights and Cold War between Israel and the Palestinian, especially Gaza. And this has been going on, and since October 7, 2023, things has been escalating, and attack on Hamas, it's been very, very bad. So can you give us a sense of historical context to the Hamas attack on October 7, which is frequently missing from the mainstream media narratives?
Yes. So the mainstream narrative, usually starts with the Hamas attack, and it's labeled as a terrorist attack. Of course, it was horrible in the sense that civilians were killed, and but there's a lot of context, both recent as well as long-term historical, that needs to be done to put it into perspective. And the first is how the State of Israel came into being. And the violence didn't begin in 1948, in fact began in the 1920s. There was before that, of course, there was the formation of the World Zionist Movement that began in 1897
Yes.
in Europe, and the goal of that movement was to create a Jewish homeland. And it didn't really gain a lot of traction, of course, until the Nazis came to power in Germany, and the Holocaust really began. But of course there were pogroms, before that, particularly in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But the militias, the Zionist militias that were launched, particularly the Haganah in 1920. That was followed by the Irgun Tzvei Leumi in 1931,
Mm-hmm.
the Lehi in 1940, Palmach 1941.
Yes.
So these militias began they were formulated as so-called self-defense forces, but they quickly turned into terrorizing Palestinians, terrorizing also the British, who were then in control of the British mandate in Palestine. And they were, at that time, a lot of that was because of they were resisting the British limitations on immigration, Jewish immigration to Palestine, fearing Palestinian unrest.
Uh-huh.
But the big one, of course, was Nakba, the
1948.
That's right, the catastrophe, in which about 750,000, that's 750,000 Palestinians were essentially kicked out of their villages, 531 villages, plus the city of Jaffa.
Uh-huh.
And these Palestinians have never been allowed to return to their homes, and so they became refugees.
Right.
And the State of Israel
And
was
scattered all over the world.
all over the world, the Palestinian diaspora. So the diaspora is far larger than the number of Palestinians who actually still live
Right.
in Israel-Palestine.
Yes.
And then things were sort of it was occupation, but a lot of the land that we now know of, that is to say, the West Bank and Gaza, were under the control of Jordan and Egypt, respectively. In 1967, the Six-Day War, Israel took control of these areas.
Right.
And these became what we know of today as the occupied territories. And things got
West
a lot
Bank.
worse after the Oslo Accords of 1993, which was supposed to initiate a peace process. Instead,
Supposedly, and nobody talks about it
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And instead, it was a pretext for Israel, not taking responsibility for the administration of the occupied territories. Basically, and this was particularly the case in the case of the West Bank, because the Area A was created which consisted of the Palestinian cities, was handed over to the Palestinian Authority. But the Palestinian Authority was more interested about staying in power, corruption, and controlling its own population than challenging the Israeli occupation. And meanwhile, the settlers started coming in more and more numbers, and today there are, depending upon what you count, anywhere from 800,000, 900,000 settlers living in occupied territories, which includes the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And with the right-wing government that came into power in Jerusalem, the Israeli government, the number of settler attacks. This is basically the government, the Israeli government of November 2022 is a government of basically run by settlers. I mean, it's driven by settlers,
Right.
and the settler movement, and this has given a full-blown green light to settlers to do whatever they want. They go in, they shoot Palestinians, they chase Palestinians from their flocks of sheep,
Their olive
orchards, their homes,
and they take over their homes.
Right. And the Israeli, in the occupied territories, it's the military, the IDF, that stands there and observes. It does not intervene to stop the settlers. So we know that this is a collaboration between the settlers and the Israeli state, and it's very deliberate. And so life in the West Bank has become really unbearable. The number of arrests by the IDF has skyrocketed as a result of increasing, militarized raids into Jenin, into Nablus, into Tulkarm, into Qalqilia.
Right.
And
so this actually been going on
ever since,
continuous.
Right.
Since 1948, and maybe started before that. But what about if we start talking about since October 7, after Hamas attacked on October 7, Israel says it has the right to defend itself. That justify its full-scale military assault on Gaza. How do you respond to that?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, the Israel is the occupying power. So under the Geneva Convention, specifically the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949, which both Israel and the United States and Palestinians have signed on to, there are certain specific responsibilities that are required of the occupying power, and one of those is among them are the responsibility to ensure the human rights of the people who are under occupation, to ensure that they have freedom of movement, that they have the ability to thrive. But Israel, of course, controls everything. It controls everything that goes in and out of the Gaza Strip, including through the Egyptian border. And so these rights are systematically trampled upon. What is happening and has been happening in the West Bank, has really been atrocious. That Palestinians cannot live normal lives, and so the Hamas attack on October 7th, 2023, was a response to not only the siege of Gaza, but to the increasing assaults on Palestinians
Yes.
in the West Bank.
Right.
And so Israel, in this case, it's not under international law a question of self-defense. It's a question of the occupying power taking responsibility for the people under its control.
Right. Yeah, that's really, really sad.
Yeah.
But how does the framing of Israel as a country versus Hamas and Hezbollah and the Palestinian as organization and non-state actors shape the language of disclosure and bias of the narrative? You know, now we can see the narrative is all on one side.
Yeah, so the framing of this is that, well, if you have a nation state, a nation state is thought of as a country that has a right to enforce certain laws, that has the right to arrest people because they're if they arrest someone, they must be criminals.
Okay.
And whereas an organization, if it captures someone, these are hostages. So the language of this conflict is asymmetric in the sense that the state arrests prisoners, and criminals. The organization takes hostages. So there's a different. We have as a general public, we have a different reaction to these terms.
Yes.
There is the country has an army, or it has police. The organization has terrorists, or at best militia fighters,
Is what they think.
irregulars, and the state imprisons and it doesn't torture, but it actually does. The organization, automatically you think, okay, whoever they capture is going to be tortured, and that has proven to be not the case. The hostages who were held by Hamas in Gaza, who have been released, said yes, they were living under horrible conditions because they were being held in underground tunnels,
Yes,
but they were not tortured.
Yeah.
Whereas the Palestinians in the West Bank who are being arrested by the thousands, we're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 Palestinians in the West Bank who have been arrested since October 7th, and they are saying that they have been tortured, they have been just brutalized during their arrest and their imprisonment, and so these are just a sampling of the differences in
right. And
this framing.
A lot of people are familiar with this right now, and we are witnessing in real life dehumanization for all the Palestinians since 1948, basically. And in Gaza, they've been locked up for the past 25 years. What can we say? And all the people who were kicked out of their homes, it's been 80 years for them trying to find themselves homes. So how does occupation and resistance different from a war, or differ in war? What does international laws have to say about occupation and treatment of the civilians?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is often thought of as an Israel-Hamas war, and of course, what we're seeing in Gaza is that the Israeli response is really a full-scale military assault that has destroyed, something like 70% of the buildings in Gaza. And what Hamas has no such capability to inflict that kind of damage on Israel, and so it's not really a war in the sense of the war, say, in Ukraine, which is between two military forces that are roughly roughly comparable, and they're at a military stalemate. This is a very one-sided kind of assault, and the Palestinians are powerless to do anything about it. And even if you take before October 7th, what was happening was that Israel was imposing the conditions of occupation, restricting anything that goes in and out of Gaza, withholding taxes that are for the Palestinian Authority, and the Palestinians there was nothing in their power to respond or to counteract
Of course.
what Israel was doing.
They don't have much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Israel says its goal in the military operation is to completely destroy and eliminate Hamas. Is this a realistic goal? Is Hamas separable from the population? What does Hamas actually want?
Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions there about Hamas, and Hamas is, well, first of all, it was founded in 1987, and the what is often quoted is this line in the Hamas charter that claims to say that Israel is committed to the destruction of Israel. I looked at the original Arabic text of the Hamas covenant, and there is a word there that to me means to nullify, to nullify or to cancel Israel, and what they meant by that is that Israel as an exclusive Jewish state,
Yes.
okay, needs to be. We need to cancel an exclusive Jewish state. Hamas has, if you interview or talk to Hamas officials, every one of them will say that they are committed to a two-state solution.
Right.
And a two-state solution is totally incompatible with eliminating Jews from Israel-Palestine.
Right.
And Hamas is more than a so-called terrorist organization. It has a militia, but the militia only represents about 20% of what Hamas is. Hamas is also a social service organization. That's how it built its base among the Palestinian people. It is a political party that in the only elections that have been held by Palestine
2005
in 2006 January. So there was this election was held in Gaza and the West Bank, and
they won.
They won in both.
Right.
So they won in the West Bank and they won by a wide margin in Gaza.
Right.
And so whereas the United States and Israel want to talk to Fatah and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank in Ramallah, that government is actually an illegitimate government because it actually lost those elections,
right,
even in the West Bank.
Yes.
And so Hamas is actually the legitimate party to form a government in both Gaza and the West Bank.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, whether you agree with them fully or not. And so it's the other question is this: is that is it possible to totally eliminate Hamas from the Palestinian population? It's like asking the question: is it possible to eradicate for a foreign power to eradicate let's say the Democratic Party from the United States of America? Is it the role of a foreign power to eliminate the Democratic Party from the U.S.?
Right.
I think not only is it not the responsibility of a foreign power, and we would resent it, but I don't think it's possible, right? Because there are people in the U.S. who believe that party, represents their aspirations,
right?
No matter how much they may.
Well, I'm very concerned about our tax money and our economy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think? What is the U.S. role in Israel behavior with this?
That's an excellent question, because it brings the question to here at home, because we often think of what is happening in the Middle East as being 8,000 miles away. And the reality is that we are intimately responsible for it in the sense that our government has been one of the you can say, the colonial protectors and enablers of the formation of the Israeli state in 1948,
Yeah.
along with Britain and France. And the U.S. has given full support, and ever since 1979, it has made a really unprecedented financial commitment to Israel by giving it 3.5, something like that, $3.5 billion of military aid, and this is beyond the non-military aid, but to give $3.5 billion worth of military aid every year, and half that to Egypt, and so we have, and also giving Israel a green light that whatever Israel does, the U.S. says that we have your back. This is what Biden has said. That's what Trump has said, and so this has emboldened Israel to continue the settlement project, to continue violence on Palestinians, to continue to seize land, to continue to restrict the Palestinians' right of movement, and so what Israel is doing, Israel would not be able to do what it is doing if the United States didn't provide this level of support.
Yes.
And even the European powers are wary of this level of the U.S. giving Israel a blank check. And so it is our responsibility as American citizens, as U.S. residents, to take up this issue with our Congress, and to say that if Israel is going to commit genocide, we, the American people, will not be a party to genocide. I mean, there's a trial that has just started yesterday at the International Court of Justice that was launched by South Africa, and it's about genocide, that
Correct.
Israel is committing genocide in Gaza.
Okay.
And so we really have a responsibility to take this issue to Congress, take it to the President, and say, enough is enough. We cannot be a party to genocide.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the American people? What else they need to know about the defender of Israel? Especially, when the U.S. says that Israel is the tip of the spear defending our way of life, democracy, liberalization, and Western value. What do you need to tell, what we need to educate the American public in regards to this subject?
Yeah, well, one of the myths that Israel promotes is that it is the only liberal democracy in the Middle East, and of course it is liberal in the sense that it is an advanced Western country, in the sense that, well, even though the people who have the Jewish people who have migrated to Israel over the decades have come from all over the world, it is still run by Ashkenazi Jews who come from the U.S., from Europe, and Western countries, and it still has that sort of settler colonial mentality, and so only in that notion does it parallel what the U.S. has done, and the U.S. itself, of course. If we really look at U.S. history and what the U.S. did in terms of slavery, what the U.S. did in terms of killing off the Native Americans, seizing their land, the U.S. was a settler colonial project.
Yeah, and I think the American people are dealing with the biggest misconception about Israel and Palestine right now as we speak. Can you give us, do you have any idea about the toll of death so far?
Well, so the official death toll at this point from the Gaza Health Ministry is about 23,500.
Wow, that's horrible.
And over 10,000 of those are children, babies, and
that's horrible.
Yeah.
What about the slogan that the Palestinians always use, from the river to the sea? That seems to threaten the Jewish population of Israel and Palestine. What does the phrase mean to Palestinians?
Yeah.
We have
So
2 minutes left, so I hope we can cover that.
Okay, great. So from the river to the sea, what it is a Palestinian. It represents the Palestinian aspiration to return to their homes. So for a Palestinian whose ancestors grew up in let's say Haifa, their desire is to be able to return to their home there, or to Nazareth.
That's their goal.
Wherever they came from. So it's not about pushing Jews into the sea. A lot of Palestinians believe that we can go back to the way things were under the before the British Mandate, or even during the British Mandate, where Jews and Palestinians lived together side by side in the city that was cleansed of 30,000 Palestinians, Jaffa, which is just south of Tel Aviv. Palestinians and Jews lived side by side. They had shops, they had homes, they did commerce together. And
it's very important to go back in history and see they used to live in peace. All different. It's not a religious war. It's the occupier, and I really hope the narrative changes, how people misconception about the Palestinian, how everything is going right now. We need to clarify that to everybody, and we can see a lot of international attention now the Palestinians are getting. Mm-hmm. And it's changing. I can see a little more changes happening in the past few days.
Yes. Well, we can see that it's tragic what is happening, the humanitarian crisis, the catastrophe, but certainly global awareness and certainly American awareness of what's going on there is greatly increased as a result of this, and hopefully that will lead to changes in policy down the road, and that is my hope.
That will change eventually, as long as we have the good intention and people are using their good hearts with the humanity, things will change. I want to thank you so much. I wish we have more time. We're running out. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank
We'd
you
like to continue this another day with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There's so much to hear from you. I appreciate your knowledge. Thank you, Dr. Len.
Okay.
Thank you for watching us. See you next time. Good night.